Hello, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen, and as always, we have a lot to talk about. Since the last show, the Knicks have advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 1999. Yay! I don't know. I don't want to push one of these buttons, and it's not a it's not a chair. All right. Um, and we're here to talk about. We're gonna give our last summary on that Boston series and kind of what we can take from that series and basically the playoffs overall into this series against Indiana, and then we're gonna dive right into this Indiana series and just kind of talk about what some of the challenges may be for the Knicks, but more importantly, what's the path to victory. All right, so we'll talk about that. The most Tony Crowe from Knicks and Bruises, Geoff Klafter from the Happily Ever Klafter Daily Sports Blog. How are you two?
Oh, I'm good, Queen. I'm glad to be back. It feels like it's been a long time since I shared the show with you. So I'm definitely glad to be back.
For sure. Both of you were Knicks fans in 1999, right? The last time we went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Okay, all right. Well, before we get into it, what is that? What was it like for you when the Knicks advanced? Tony, then Geoff, and then Geoff, you can lead off the next time.
Th- th- th-
Let's go.
that's what it's been like since 1999. You know what I mean? And as long as it's been 25 years, like part of it feels longer and part of it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like part of it feels like just yesterday, 99. You know what I mean? Probably because we've held on to it. You know what I mean? But
Well, we've
then
had to hold on too.
but at the same time, it's felt like even longer than 25 years. Like it
Yeah.
felt like dog years. You know what I mean? Going through the seasons that we've gone through and endured. But ultimately, where we are now is a testament to the front office we have now, to the coaching staff we have now, to the organization change that really, just changed 360, turned it all the way around. And it's not a one time thing, it's not a 1 year thing. You know what I mean? Like we're built to have a successful run at the very least for years and years to come.
You can argue that we're a year ahead. Some would argue
Absolutely.
it's
Like
not what they were expecting in year one. And I have to be honest, it wasn't what I was expecting. And I'm not saying it, I never said it couldn't happen, but it wasn't something I was expecting in year one.
exactly. And I agree. I don't believe that they thought they would be as successful as they are currently in this moment. Like this probably where they are now is probably the ceiling for where they thought they could be. And there's still room to continue and go further right now, currently. So I'm sure they're happy where they are.
Yep. Jeff?
Well, I was a bachelor the last time the Knicks were in the in the NBA Finals. I, my wife and I were not even engaged yet in 1999, so it's been a long time. And Carrie didn't know how crazy I was about this team, and now even today, she's like, "It's just a basketball game." But Knicks fans know it's so much more than just a basketball game. You look outside the arena after the game, and you just see the entire city. And anybody who has, and I'm not a New Yorker, I was born in Jersey. My dad's from Long Island, so I kind of come by it honest, but I'm not a native New Yorker. But the way it unifies the five boroughs is something that's magical, and that no other sports city in America can claim. And so, yeah, other cities do it well, but there's something that's just a little bit more special about doing it in the city that never sleeps. And if that makes me an arrogant, whatever, then I'll own that because I believe that it's true. But it's just super special for me. Um, uh, you know, as my first season as a Knicks fan was 1984, and that was Bernard King, and we went to Game 7, but it was in Boston Garden, and they blew our doors off, and I guess 8-year-old me was just like crushed, like you just like rip your heart out of your chest, crushed by it, because you know, I didn't know any better. You just think that the Knicks were always going to win because they beat Detroit. You know, Bernard King was this unstoppable force, and then, you know, and then we had the Ewing years, which were amazing, you know, and starting to get to that level of competence. Like when I was in high school, like if the Knicks missed the second round of the playoffs, you're like, what's wrong with the Knicks? You know, now we're back to the situation where this is a, you know, third time in a row that we've at least gotten that far. And now ECF, next step, you know, and so I think that's critical.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, just going back to what you said about you not even being engaged at the time, I think when you meet somebody, for those of us who are still single, you can't even let them know how much of a Knicks fan you are.
Back
You
then.
know, well, even now, like you don't want them to look at. They be like, I can't be messing with them. They got to watch every game. We can't go on vacation. All the vacations got to be in the summertime. So it's like, keep that to myself until we in it.
Nah, it come with the job. It come with the job, Queen. And you know, to Geoff, I think it would be a great idea for you to sit down and interview your wife and just see her viewpoint of what she's seen you go through over these years to where we are now. Even if it's a mediator, because I would love to sit down and ask you both questions just to get that perspective, because that's a journey within itself that she endured with you. You know what I'm saying? So to your point, Queen, nah, don't be scared. Share, let them know what they gotta. Let them know what comes with the territory.
If they can deal with that crazy, your relationship is solid. Like if she can deal with my Knicks fandom and all the insanity that comes with it, and you know, you've seen me, my texts in our group chat, you know how crazy I get during those games. So if she can handle that, that's bulletproof. Everything else is of the same, but an interview would probably be like, yeah, he's just an idiot. That's okay.
Yeah.
But that's a great idea, Tony. I actually might if she's willing to do that. I might. And it's interesting because she's a Spurs fan, so she's always been a Spurs fan, and so crazily enough, the Knicks lost to the Spurs in 1999 in the NBA Finals. So, you know, there's been several interesting watershed moments we've had like that in our relationship. But it's crazy and it's fun and you know, it's nice that she's actually on my side on this one. You're like, you know, if the Spurs aren't in it, she loves the Joker. He's out now, so she's on board in the background. But my boys are all in, and we've had so much fun. This is the first time in their lives that all three of us could enjoy this together, and we're
that's beautiful.
Soaking in every minute of it, man. It's something special.
Yeah. Shout out to Lady and the Chef. We missed you. Can't wait for you to get back. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on the Knicks, you know, and how they've, how they've done over, in the playoffs up to this point. So shout out to you, and your mom.
Lady and the Chef gonna get to go to 2 parades. That's crazy.
Right, exactly. To be honest, I wasn't super excited when the Knicks got back to the ECF, and I think I'm with Kevin Bergen. I mean, I appreciated it, but I didn't feel that, like everybody was exuberant and what I didn't really feel that, because I feel like
the expectations has risen. That's why
the expectations have definitely risen for me, and I see a path to the finals, and so. I'm not saying that it wasn't an accomplishment at all. It was. I mean, listen, I've said this for a long time. It's similar to you, Geoff. I started watching the Knicks probably basketball 82, 83, probably around 84. The Knicks definitely before Patrick, definitely pretty much every game since Patrick Ewing became a Knick, and probably a year or two before that. and then go through the Pat Riley years and the Van Gundy years, and then to go through Isaiah Thomas. Who else? Whoever else? Well, I'm not going to put it
Everybody
all on
else.
him.
Scott Layden,
Layden,
Dave Checkerts. I think
Dave
that was before.
Dave Checkers
before.
might have
He
been
did.
okay.
He was good. He was good.
He was okay. I think Walsh brought us back to some respectability, but
Mhm.
it was a shit show for a long time, you know. And you know, when Leon Rose came back, hired Tom Thibodeau, we got back to respectability at least, because for a while, forget the talent on the floor, the organization itself. I was like, what the hell is going on here? But now we're back to respectability as a franchise and now on the court, right? So super excited for the organization to get back to this point. But to your point, Tone, I think my expectations have risen, and now I'm like, let's get let's get to the
What a
point.
blessing to be able
Yeah.
to have expectations, though.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know, that I mean, I agree with your take 100%.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be satisfied. And I don't think the team is. I think that the team's reaction was exactly like yours. Tom Thibodeau,
Mhm.
Jalen Brunson are like, yeah, well, we won 8. 8 wins doesn't
Yes.
get you anything. That's not
Halfway.
what they're here for either.
Yeah.
So I think as far as your fandom is concerned, it's right on point with where the organization is at. But you know, when you've got Alexi Shved and Lou Amundsen as your starters, you don't have any hope for expectations except for maybe a decent lottery pick.
Facts. All right, so let's get into it. Before we get into the Indiana Pacers series, any last words on the Boston series, or if you want to expand it, just on the Knicks' play in the playoffs so far, and if any of that, anything specific you think would bode well for the Knicks in the next series. Geoff, we'll start with you.
I don't know if I said this on air or not. I know you and I had this conversation, but what strikes me is that the Detroit Pistons were the perfect primer for getting to play the Celtics because they were solid defensively. They hit you hard. They were tough. They had long backcourt. Amen. Thompson or Esar, whichever one he is. Thompson's a great on-ball defender. You've got Cade Cunningham. So in a lot of ways, it was like the primer on how to play and how to beat Boston. And I think in a lot of ways, Boston is the primer for how to beat Indiana because a lot of similarities. Indiana loves to shoot the three. They love to play at a fast pace. I don't know if they quite have the perimeter defenders that the Celtics do, but you have to be able to rotate onto shooters. You have to be able. Your switches have to be crisp, or they're going to burn you to a crisp. And so, in a lot of ways, I think that as the Detroit series was to Boston, the Boston series is into Indiana, to borrow an SAT question analogy for just a second. But I really think that's the case. And look, let's not understate beating Boston, even with Tatum gone for the last 2 games and a fraction, was a terrific accomplishment that no expert thought could happen. Like all the ESPN, I think they were 0 for 11. So kudos to the Knicks for stepping up to the challenge without getting supreme performances consistently from our best players either. Like Towns was up and down. Brunson had some fantastic performances, and then he was rather subdued in a couple of those games. You know, Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby were on the Tyrese Halliburton train where you get 30 points one day and then 4 points the next, you know. And so there was a lot of inconsistency, but through that inconsistency, the Knicks were able to sustain and maintain a high level of performance that is needed to oust a champion. And kudos to them for getting it done.
Yeah, for sure. Anything specific up to this point, or just overall, just having to go through those 2 series you think will bode well for the Knicks going into the next round?
Well, Mikal Bridges' mid-range game and his defense, both of those things I think were found money, if you will, because it's not something that if we got it during the regular season, it certainly didn't stand out. And maybe it was just a case of him learning the game, or maybe he's just a playoff riser, whatever you want to call it. But when Bridges is on another level, it elevates this team to another level. And he's a guy who's potentially going to be able to attack Halliburton in the next series and make him play defense. And he's also a guy who's going to probably be tasked with guarding him. And so I think that Mikal Bridges is what stands out for me. And he's going to be the real X factor or key piece. And I think he has been in our first two series, because at times, especially in the fourth quarter of some of those games, he was as dominant as Brunson in the fourth quarter with that mid-range, getting baskets. And then obviously the defensive stops. He's had some of the greatest defensive plays of the last quarter century that we've seen from this team. So really shout out to him. And he's been what we've needed him to be and what we expected when we made the trade, I think, but we didn't. It's starting to come to fruition, and I think that we just hit the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot still left that can improve.
Right. Tony, just last thoughts. What you think we can carry forward or need to carry forward?
Well, number one is like you guys pointed out, we didn't really play well in these playoffs, but we closed the series out with our best game of the year. I feel like not just the playoffs, but of the year. We're learning on the fly still, right? We're still figuring things out. I don't think Mikal has had like a superb 48-minute game yet. You know what I mean? I think it's really been like, okay, whether it's a clutch moments, these defensive stops, or a clutch quarter, you know what I mean, in the third or the fourth, non-Brunson minutes, whatever. But I don't think we've really, other than this last game, that might be the first time, we played 48 minutes, like they like to talk about. You know what I mean? A wire-to-wire win, a blowout, contributors all across the board, 4 20-point scorers, triple-double from Josh Hart. Then you got double digits off the bench. That's what I'm hoping we could move forward with, right? Even if it's not every single game, but a more consistent game like that, where everybody is kind of contributing. Other things that stood out, again, like you said, Geoff, me and Quinn, we talked about this a little bit earlier off air, but the starter minutes being a minus and somehow the bench minutes being the positive, considering what our bench has been all year long, right? And so obviously, like, Tibbs' philosophy has worked in some shape or form, because he didn't expand the bench, you know what I mean? But somehow the effectiveness of the guys who have played has been game changing. Lastly, when we talk about game changing, Mitchell Robinson, superb to me, especially in the last series, in the Celtics series. But I think he was effective in the Detroit series, and I think we had questioned whether there was correlation to our defense turning around once Mitchell Robinson came back. But I think definitively now you cannot question it. Like, what he does for our defense, we need. You know what I mean? And that's what Tibbs loves. The double big lineup has been effective. He's Tibbs neutralizing the effectiveness of the strategy to foul him. Him sticking through it and staying and remaining confident, and then going 4 for 4 at one stretch. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it was 6 for 6
or 6 for 6. Yep. To neutralize that strategy again. You know what I mean? So now looking forward, people might second guess even utilizing it. You know what I mean? Or if they utilize it, Mitch has the confidence to say, "All right, this is not going to keep me off the floor." It's just so much growth throughout this whole team. And again, we're like just scratching the surface of where we're ultimately going to be in the long run, learning on the fly. You know what I mean? Figuring things out as we go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think what has stood out for me is just how the Knicks have grown, in the playoffs. Like they're just not the same team that played the 82nd game of the regular season. They're more mentally tough. They're more physical. They figure it out. They just figure out how to win. They bounce back, after losses, and I think we've seen that, in the regular season. But they're just a different team now, in the playoffs, and that's the biggest thing I've noticed through these first two series, and particularly in the Boston series. Tom Thibodeau just really being on point, particularly defensively, and we're not going to be in drop against Boston. We're going to switch it. Just some of the things that he's done defensively, some of the things he's done rotation wise, has really been good. I do think, you know, there's some meat on the bone still offensively, right? In terms of prioritizing Towns, how can we make it easier for him? And we definitely do want him in the post, taking advantage of his height. That doesn't necessarily mean he has to play back to the basket. Like he can turn around and face up and still take advantage, um, down low, maybe not getting them as many 3-point shots. So the bottom line is I like what Thibodeau has done overall in this series. But up to this point, but I still think there's more that we can get, from Tom Thibodeau in terms of the rotations, and I think that's going to be super important, um, in this series.
What
Um,
can I
it-
ask?
yeah.
Do you think this was Tom Thibodeau's best coach series as a Knicks? And, and, and if so, is that encouraging? Considering for the most part, he's been a coach who has his philosophy, sticks with his philosophy. In game adjustment has always been a question. Not so much with next game adjustment. Um,
Right. He's really good game to game. I think so. I think so. And there's still more to be had. There's still more to be had. Um, but yeah, I think so. Yeah. Jeff, any comments on Thibodeau before we?
I've always been in his corner. I like the baseline of competence that he brings to the organization, and I think that shows in the playoffs too. And I think it's specifically important. Yeah, we got out, but we did make adjustments. We went back to the drawing board. We went back to a formula that we thought would work, and the players executed it to perfection, and absolutely blew the doors off the Celtics in that last game. And so that's not just the players, it's not just the coach either. It's a complete team effort, and it's synergy, and it's really what this organization has from Leon Rose all the way on down to PJ Tucker. I mean, I think you see the or whoever you consider, I guess, the rookies, or maybe the two-way contract players, whoever you want to say. But I really feel like there's a standard of excellence that's expected, and I think they're displaying that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I do think though, like a boxer, you got to be nimble on your feet. I think, Tom Thibodeau, you got to be nimble on your feet, in terms of, you know, um, particularly rotation changes. Like when do we need to go double big? When do we need to bring in McBride? To your point, Tony, the starting unit is what, negative plus minus in this series, and I mean in the playoffs, and it's been like that since Christmas, I believe. And that's fine if you don't want to, change the starting lineup, but you do have to have a quick hook. Like you do have to make changes quickly if you see that team is not functioning well.
But what does that say to you? What can we take from that, especially considering um off paper, you know what I mean? The eye test, it's always been we need more bench help. The bench is doing the bench. We have no bench. You know what I mean? The starters are playing 280 minutes. Like it's almost like it's mind boggling to me. Just like was it last year? I believe where we were winning games just because of the possession possession battle, as opposed to you know what I mean. Us like our shooting was not good. Our 3-point shooting was not good. Like.
Right.
But somehow,
Even with all of that, we still
finding a way to win. Exactly.
Something wins with that group.
So it's again, it's almost like a testament to Tibbs too, and his philosophy of find a way to win. You know what I mean? Like, but it's mind boggling
to offset it. I mean, yeah. Listen, it's the playoffs. I do think it's on the coach to put the players in the best position to win, and then it's on the players to execute. But there are some times, to use a football reference, there's sometimes when, as a player, as a quarterback, you got to outplay your offensive line. So there are gonna come times in the playoffs, regardless of whether the scheme is perfect offensively or defensively. Like you just gotta find a way. Obviously, you don't want that to be game in and game out where you just playing uphill because the coach is just a hot mess. But there are times when you're gonna have to outplay your offensive line. All right. Anything else on what we've learned for the Knicks so far? All right. So let's get into this series. I have so many questions about this series. I don't even know which. I don't even know where to start. First.
Let's start with the heads of the snakes.
Okay, let's start with the head of the snakes. What question would ask a question about the head of the snakes?
I mean, I'll make a statement, and just in the fact of, we have the clutch player of the year, we have the clutch player of the playoffs, but Halliburton has had, some clutch moments as well in these playoffs, and I think that's really going to be interesting. I'll say, because I don't know if this series is going to be as tight knit as our previous ones with close games. I actually think one side or the other, we're going to see some blowouts in this series.
Mm-hmm.
But in the times when the game is close, that's what I'm looking to see. This is still kind of new for Halliburton, though. I think Brunson has been a clutch performer. He's shown, like, he just got the award, but this ain't new to him. He was doing it last year. He was doing it in the opportunity in Dallas. You know what I mean? Obviously, he's been doing it since he got here, but he ended his career in Dallas with these moments as well. If we're talking matchup, like head to head, I'm obviously giving Brunson the edge, or I'm going with Brunson, but I think that's going to be intriguing. Two different styles too. Two different styles of point guard.
Shout out to Lloyd Banks joining us. Knicks in 5.
Let's go.
Hey,
let's go.
Whoa, let's do it. I would be super happy. Listen, I don't think they're gonna play each other. I think it's almost like the quarterback.
Oh,
yeah. Halliburton, leading his team, Brunson, leading his, and whoever leads it the best and gets the most support wins. For Brunson to become a factor in the close games, the games have to be close. And I think that's the thing with this Indiana team. They have a very good offense, and the offense, at least in terms of offensive efficiency, has been, if I'm not mistaken, even better in the playoffs. People talk about the pace slowing down in the playoffs, and it's a slower brand of basketball. Their pace has not changed. This is how they play, whether it's regular season or the playoffs. Nothing has changed. And I think the Knicks defense, well, yeah, the Knicks defense basically has to be on point because this is not Detroit, right? And even Boston, which was a 3-point shooting team, Indiana can score in transition. They can score, they can hit threes, but they can also, get into the key some. And then you also have Siakam. You could throw the ball to in the post. So their offense, in my opinion, is a little more diverse than Boston. And so the Knicks are going to have to play. I don't, the defense they played in game 6, I don't know if that's sustainable. I don't know if that can be their new floor. If that could be their new floor, like Lloyd Banks just said, the Knicks are winning in 4 or 5. If game 6 defense is the Knicks' new floor, this is a 4 or 5 game series. But we know the Knicks. They'll be great offensively or great defensively, and you're expecting that. And then the next game is something different. Now, whether that's them, whether that's teams making, adjustments, right? It's not always the same. So I do think Brunson is the best player in this series, and I actually think we have the 2 best players in this series, in my opinion. But I do think Indiana, because they've been together longer, they're more consistent. They're more consistent from game to game. And I think that's something the Knicks are just coming into. I don't think the Knicks are there yet. Like Indiana, we know how Indiana plays. They play like that every game. The Knicks, sometimes they play like that. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes we get contributions from everybody. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes you feel like a but
We all enjoy Knicks.
for the old heads, right? And so that level of consistency is not there from the Knicks, and I think they're going to need that in this series. Yeah. Geoff, anything in terms of Halliburton and Brunson?
Well, the thing about Halliburton is he is one of the biggest boom or bust players in the league. Like, he had an amazing 31.8 assist performance in the closeout game 5 against Cavs. He was awesome. He had the game winner. I think it was in game 4 maybe, or game 2-1. That was incredible shot. And then when they lost by 22, he had 4 points and 5 assists. Like, Brunson has bad games, but a Brunson bad game is like 20 points and 6 assists. And actually it could be even higher than that, just with a lot of turnovers, right? The turnover number is usually what we complain about with JB and the process, not so much the overall counting stats, because the counting stats are almost always there. And so,
or hijacking the offense, pardon.
Yeah, that's what I mean by process. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So from that standpoint, I think there's a difference there. I also think that potentially the Knicks can put Bridges on Halliburton, and you're not going to stop Halliburton. He can shoot 60% from 3 on a given night, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. But make it difficult for him in a way that I'm not sure that Nesmith and Nembhard can do to Brunson. I'm not saying that they can't. They did it a couple times in last year's playoffs, but for the most part, I think Nembhard was in foul trouble most of the time, and Nesmith had some difficulties because he's more of a small forward, and he's kind of like OG. He struggles to guard smaller, quicker players sometimes, and so I'm not sure that that's the answer either. But if you get a good defensive series from Nembhard and Nesmith on Jalen, then I think the advantage goes into Indiana's corner a little bit. But if those two struggle, I think it's a big time advantage Knicks, just because of the other stuff that I want to focus my comments on Jalen for now, because we'll get into that other stuff later. But look, Game 7 last year, Halliburton cooked us, so he's certainly capable, but he's kind of like the Knicks. Which Halliburton is going to show up? And if the Knicks can shut him down, and if we can do a good job on some of these other guys, and I think that the Boston series has to be a template. I think we have to be able to switch and live with the mismatches on the switch.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give these guys these wide open threes, because they're going to bury you if you give it to them. Stay with the shooters. If that means that you're giving up a little bit on the inside, I think you live with it. And I think Thibodeau's shown that he's willing to do that now. We saw that the entirety of the Boston series, and if we can not see drop coverage for the rest of the season, I think we've got a better shot than if we do. So that's kind of where I'm at with trying to stop Halliburton.
I will say this, Geoff.
I know where you're going, Queen.
Huh?
I know where you're going.
I don't know if drop hurts us as much.
With Indiana.
Huh?
With Indiana.
Because to me, the main thing is to contain Halliburton. Contain him. You don't want to give him the advantage. And now they're passing the ball around, getting everybody involved. They are very good at moving the ball, and the Knicks are not very good in rotation, in my opinion. So you're right. If you're switching and you live with this switch, everybody is in play over the top. Even if you drop and you give Halliburton a 3, I don't think that's ideal. But I would take that over Halliburton getting in the key and getting everybody involved. Now, obviously, if he starts going ham from 3, then you can't use that. You can't use that. But I think I'm okay with a little drop. Those two, to me, it's just about keeping Halliburton up front. And thank goodness this year, again, we're just focusing on Brunson and Halliburton at this point. We got Mikal Bridges now. We did not have Mikal Bridges last year. I don't think OG is a good matchup for Halliburton. I'm not sure who. I think it's Bridges and Deuce. Those are the two. And similar to how OG before Mikal came around, OG was the primary defender on Cade Cunningham. I think that's pretty much gonna have to be how it's gonna be, in my opinion, with Bridges. And I think Bridges is up for the task. I think Bridges' defense and his screen navigation has gotten much better over the course of the season and has been really good. I don't know what the numbers say, but from the eye test have been really good in these playoffs. And if you don't have to do anything else but put Bridges on Halliburton, I think that's a win for the Knicks.
Just to piggyback off of more so what you were saying, Queen, with the drop reference. Mm-hmm. For me, strategically, and Geoff, to what you're saying about Halliburton being streaky and having these great games and then off games. To me, the key, or one of the keys, is living with Halliburton trying to kill you. You know what I mean? And whatever it be, you know what I mean? It may end up being a 30-point game, 40-point game, whatever that ends up looking like. But if he's doing that, he's not feeding his supporting cast. He's not getting them those open looks and easy shots. So I think that is a benefit for us. And I think that's kind of the point with the drop. You know what I mean?
If you have him in ISO trying to go 1-on-1, that's a win.
I just
And-
know this:
it's not.
the Pacers shot 50% from the field and 40% from three in 10
Yeah,
playoff games so far.
they
They
have.
have 29.7 assists to 11.9 turnovers. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They move the ball with alacrity. So you have to. That's why I'm saying we don't want to have a lot of switch. I mean, we don't want to have a lot of complications to our defense. Just
Put them in
Switch
rotation.
move guys,
everything.
stay in front of them as best you can.
Correct.
Get out on the shooters, contest, because they get up 36 threes or 38 threes a game, something like that. So they shoot a high volume and they shoot the lights out with it. So you have to stay attached to those shooters. And I don't know that Halliburton's usually looking to drive to score the ball. That's not his game.
Right.
He wants to get in the paint and draw and then kick it out. And he's really good at it. He averages 9 assists per game, and he can do that all game long if you let him. So I think you turn him into a finisher. Make him beat you. If you live with the one-on-one matchup, even if it's Brunson on him, like on a switch or something like that,
Correct.
you live with that. You don't let him get everybody else off and involved and where they can beat you.
Yeah,
And-
I agree with that. When he get in the key though, he can't finish at the rim. That's not the first thing he's looking to do. But yeah, he can. You want to say something, Tony?
Well, just to add on and be physical, especially if he's trying to finish at the rim. Because yeah, you're right, he can. He's more than capable. But I don't think he likes contact. I don't think he relishes the contact. So be physical with him. I think that helps, and we could deep dive more where we transition to the Siakam part of it.
Yes.
But even if you're giving him the ball, you know what I mean. Like I know he could post up. I know he's a very skilled player, but I live with him going out there and making tough shots.
Correct.
You know what I mean, all game long, than him getting easy reads and easy cuts and you know what I mean? Like I live with his percentage, whatever it ends up being. If he kills you, if he gets that 30-point game, that 40-point game, I'm okay with that because I trust that he's still not 100% comfortable as the guy you give the ball to and say go get a bucket. To me, if that's what they're doing, I think that again becomes an advantage us.
I think it's an advantage us if OG is guarding him. I think it's an advantage them if Hart is guarding him. Because when OG went down in that series and Hart had to guard him, that was tough for us. And then you don't want to be in a situation again. Same thing with Halliburton. You don't want to trap Halliburton and give them an advantage. You don't want to have to double Siakam and give them an advantage. So if you have, to your point, if you have OG on him, 1-on-1, we live with whatever it is. If OG ever gets in foul trouble, I think you got to go with Precious to what we was talking about earlier over Hart. Now Hart's defense has been much better in these playoffs, right, than in the regular season. But I just remember Siakam was a load for Hart in the series last year.
Yeah, I that was gonna be my last part. If you gotta give OG a break, if he does happen to get into foul trouble, go with Precious. I think he has the familiarity of playing with them and against them already. I think he has the size to match up a little bit better. You know what I mean? He has probably that competitive, personal competitive matchup that he could get up for, and that might be an edge that we could utilize. Again,
yeah,
in spots when you know what I mean in foul trouble situation. If you got to give OG a little bit of a breather, those type of situations. If Cat is in foul trouble.
If Cat is right. I'm gonna ask Geoff this question, but I want you to hold it until I read the super chat. Would you, if it came to that, would you feel more comfortable putting Mitch on Siakam over Precious? Why and why not? But let me read this super chat first. Jason Benjamin, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate you rocking with us. So proud of this team. They are tough and resilient. Those are qualities of championship teams. Facts. They made the plays in crunch time in the first 2 rounds. We are at our healthiest as well. Absolutely. Knicks in 6, New York City. Appreciate you, Jason Benjamin. Yeah, absolutely right. We're
That's
healthy.
Got
That's not
another one
something we
too.
could say in the Indiana series last year. And hopefully, knock on wood, we remain healthy throughout the series. Yeah. Jeff?
He's got another. Jason's got another super
Oh, he
chat.
has another one? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he
All
just
right.
put it in.
Oh, a few. Also want to see more Chua minutes to defend Siakam. We was just talking about that. Also, PA helps with some athleticism on the floor. Who's Precious
precious,
Achua?
precious.
True.
Helps with some athleticism on the floor. Yes, and he helps with switches as well.
Yeah, I was talking about it earlier on my show. I think this is a great opportunity if obviously if Tibbs allows it for Precious to kind of have some meaningful, impactful minutes in this series.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about that. Jeff, to the question about playing
Well,
Mitchell and Siakam.
it's such a great question, and it's so interesting to me because that was my big question in the Boston series. So often in the past, when we've played Mitch against the Celtics, it was like you can't have him on the floor because they just stretch it out, and he was trying to protect the rim and guard the threes. He didn't know what to do, and that indecision led to triple after triple after triple after triple. And
Right.
so here you go, Indiana's similar blueprint, right? Miles Turner is a stretch five. That's the kind of player who, and I don't know, I forget who it was. I think somebody in the chat, maybe Nick Yak last year, was saying how Robinson doesn't really get cooked by Turner as much as we think that he does historically. Like if you look head to head, I'm not sure if I'm misremembering that or not, but I seem to remember it. And so I don't know. I think that Robinson has shown to me he's grown a lot as a player. And I'm going to go back to the play of the game in the Celtics game 6 when he pretty much switched on to every single player on their team. And then he locks up Jaylen Brown and gets the steal, right? This is not the same Mitchell Robinson who was a little bit overweight and a little bit slow and a little bit this and a little bit that. He's gotten much better at being able to rotate and recover. I'm not saying I want him on Tyrese Halliburton every time down the floor by any stretch of the imagination, but if you have to switch on that as for a possession or two, I think that it'll be all right. It seems like the only player who scores on him routinely is Peyton Pritchard. I don't really understand that, but Pritchard he was just crafty and he would get in there. So probably TJ McConnell will do the same thing because I think they're pretty much the same player, except McConnell's a little bit taller and not quite as good a three-point shooter, but definitely a punchable of face. I'm not worried about Mitch. To me, I was a month ago, I was convinced that Robinson was going to be traded in the offseason and that time in New York was done. And I'll be the first to say, and now I think he was, I don't think we'd win the Detroit series without
Invaluable.
him. And I don't think he'd win the Boston series without him. He was that valuable a piece. And so now I'm like, well, once you see this stuff in action, it's time to reevaluate, right? You can think that something's going to go a certain way, but then when the eye test shows you, well, that's not the way that it is, then you kind of have to reevaluate and change. And I'm kind of changing at this point and saying that if Robinson can, I'm not sure he can, but if he can play the way that he did in those first 2 series, that bodes well for us. And I think it does because, again, what do we want to do? We want to be able to stick to the shooters. Well, if you have a Robinson, that allows you to do that better. And Miles Turner, of course, is going to drag him out of the paint, but his ability to switch and his ability to do some things, if Josh Hart has to guard Miles Turner for a couple possessions, are we really, on the perimeter, are we really worried? Now, if he goes inside on him, yeah, Turner will cook him. But, if you're just talking about guarding him as a three-point shooter, I think you live with that, especially on a switch. And so I think Robinson is playable. I think the double big lineup is playable at certain points. But,
we're going to get into all of that, Joe.
We're
We're going to get into all of that.
All right.
We're going to get into all of that. The Knicks defense that we saw in game 6. Did I ask this question already? I don't think so. The Knicks defense we saw in Game 6 versus Boston, is that sustainable, or is that level of defense even needed for this Pacer team, Tony?
I think it's needed for us, for them to beat them the way I feel like we could beat them. Like, like Lord Banks said, Knicks in 5. For us to win in 5, I think we need that level of focus from the jump. You know what I mean? From the beginning of the game, for the entirety of the game, and for the entirety of the series. Um, what was the previous question you asked? Because I didn't get to answer that.
Oh,
Mitchell
Mitchell
Robinson.
Siakam. You
Oh,
you you said Precious. You said
yeah,
it was
yeah, yes. So I think that's intriguing as well, because of what we've seen, in particular in the Boston series, but throughout these playoffs from Mitchell Robinson. I thought it was hilarious that uh, when Mitchell Robinson got beat to the basket on that one drive from Tatum in Game 3, for the dunk. I think that was Game 3, right? And then well, no. It was the game we won, actually, because he tied the game. It might have been Game 2. Tatum tied the game on the drive through Mitchell Robinson.
Took
He
the
had the
lead,
chance.
I think, and then
Yeah,
Brunson.
took the lead. Yes, and then but the very next possession, they were calling out Joe Mazzulla because he ran the same exact play.
Right.
The difference was, one, Mitchell Robinson stayed with Tatum at the very least long enough to direct him to get the help from Bridges and OG. And then again, you talk about the closeout game and Mitchell Robinson's defense. I think not only is it possible and feasible, but it's also becomes an option if you have to switch OG onto Turner. If Turner is cooking this particular game or whatever the case, and so now you got you spoke about Josh Hart on a possession, but you got the option to put OG. If OG's not on, not on Siakam, you could put him on Turner. And you may have to cool Turner down. So I think it is feasible. Do I like Mitch more? At this point, I think he'll get the first look and more of the opportunities anyway. You know what I mean? So again, like we was talking about off air, for me with Precious, it's really about foul trouble. It's really about, you know what I mean? If you need him, I think he could be great to fill in, but I wouldn't bank on it being a normal part of the scheme.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is because I'm not sure what Precious brings Mitchell um over Mitchell Robinson. Now, if you have to continually switch in space, like to Jeff's point, like you don't want to just put Mitchell Robinson on somebody and be like, that's your matchup in space, right? So if it comes to that, then yeah, I could see where, Precious could probably do that. Other than that, I would just increase Mitch minutes over putting in Precious. But again, it depends on what
That that
assignment is.
that's fair, but again, and maybe this is part of one of the things we're going to get to, is the fact that they do use a lot of different guys. You know what I mean? They do. So if you could squeeze, we may need to minimize some guys to maximize them at the end. Like, so we may need to use Precious, 2-3 minutes more than a normal occasion, just so OG is 2 or 3 minutes fresher to close out a game. Or so especially going against the guys who don't stop running. You know what I mean? And part of the reason why they don't stop running is because they're rotating guys in and out of the rotation. So everybody is fresh at all times for the most part. You know what I mean? So that could be a reason why you got to go that route, as opposed to, giving Mitch more minutes. I will say though, Mitch has been great with or without Cat. You know what I mean? Like next to him.
Right.
Like no matter who the supporting cast is around Mitch, he has been great. So
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah. Before we get to the question about the defense, I want to um, read the super chat. Shout out to the art man, formerly known as Steve. Always support, and we appreciate you. Evening, y'all. Media said, although the Cavs are the number one seed, the Celtics are the real number one. Knicks smoked them like Thanksgiving turkey. Cavs cooked. Indiana is now the target. They're the hurdle we need to leap to the chip. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think it's going to be closer than others think, but I still think the Knicks will prevail. So the defense we saw in Game 6 versus Boston, is that sustainable? Do we need that level of defense to beat this Pacers team? Geoff?
Um, I'm going to say that it's not sustainable. I don't know. That was really special performance, and I think it was in a way geared toward the situation the Celtics were in without Jason Tatum and Kristaps kind of being on one leg, and and so I think that their talent deficiencies kind of played into the strategy that we wanted to use. Um, but I don't know that we have to be that level of defense to beat the Pacers. I think that the key to beating the Pacers is to control the glass. Because if we control the rebounding game, that limits the fast break opportunities that they get, and then they have to score mostly in the half court. And I think in that situation, I think we have a lot of answers, not all the answers, but I think we have a lot of answers to the problems that they present in the half court. Where the Pacers get you in trouble is they get that loose ball and they boom, they leak out. The Obi Toppin play, we saw it a million times. He doesn't play defense or try and get a rebound. He just runs the other side and gets a dunk, and they do that a lot. And so controlling the glass, and it goes on both sides too, because we control the offensive glass, we get more opportunities. This is going to have to kind of be like the Knicks from 2 years ago, where or last year, where we had the extra possessions. We took care of the ball. We can't have careless turnovers because they're going to lead to fast breaks. Also, make Indiana earn everything that they're gonna get, and sometimes they're going to get it, because in this league nowadays, sometimes great offense beats good defense. And sometimes with the Knicks, you don't even get good defense. But even when it is up to par, sometimes Indiana is going to be able to beat it just because their level of and ability to make shots is elite. Like they average 117 points per game. They shoot it like they were shooting 40% from three for the entire playoffs. That's 10 games, and 50% from the field. That's incredible shot making ability. Now, if you want to question the defensive talent of their opponent, that's fair. But until the Knicks prove that they can knock them off stride from out there, you have to assume that they're going to be able to do that until they don't, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
You gotta make them work defensively though, because if that's the area of weakness, you know what I mean. That's where you gotta expose it. You know what I mean. I think their lack of depth at the center position is another area that we could expose. Now, granted, they could play small and go with athleticism, which isn't necessarily
good for them though, Tone.
Yeah, I agree. I said
so. Bryant and Turner is pretty. And you can even play Siakam at the 5. Is that really a weakness?
But that's them going small, and I think that becomes a strength and something that could hurt us. But on the
small with Towns.
But on the flip side is if they're going small and if they're forced into going small because their bigs are in foul trouble, that's more punishment we could inflict with our lineups. You know what I mean? Like with a double big lineup. So I think we could neutralize their strengths and attack their weaknesses, which to me is the defensive end.
For sure. Listen, what I will say about the Game 6 defense that I think we're going to have to bring to this series is the Knicks didn't miss a lot of rotations in that in Game 6. Like they were on point. Whatever the game plan was, it seemed like they hit every rotation. They wasn't one person is up, the next person dropping. Everybody was where they were supposed to be, and there were multiple efforts. And I think that's what you're going to need against this against this Pacers team. Listen, I don't want to. The Knicks are going to win this series, but this Indiana team poses problems for the Knicks if the Knicks aren't on point, right? The cross matches. So we're talking about the Knicks defense. The cross matches is going to make it difficult because the person that's guarding you may not be the person you're guarding, right? So in transition, you have to match up. You have to match up quickly, right, with somebody. The pick and roll defense has to be on point, whatever it is. You're gonna have to live with Siakam and OG. Like we can't, because we're not focused, give them an advantage. You know, Halliburton puts one toe in the key, everybody's collapsing, right? Siakam looks like he's about to get a basket on OG. Here comes somebody for the double team. You understand what I mean?
You gotta live with it.
You gotta be disciplined enough, single coverage, and live with the results, right? So to me, that speaks to the mental part of the game as well. And it also speaks to, as Tony and I was talking earlier about communication, about communication. And on the defensive end, to me, I'm super concerned about Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not even talking about foul trouble, which is a concern, but I'm concerned about him. I don't know if it's defensive IQ. I don't know if it's effort. I don't know if it's just being tired and not wanting to, but I just feel like his defense is up and down. Much better in the Detroit series. But I think in the Boston series, it was up and down. Like the defense was it wasn't where I think it needs to be. And he cannot be a liability in this series defensively. So it's going to be really interesting to see what cat we get defensively. We'll talk about him on the offensive end as well. But what are we getting from him defensively? Because the Knicks have to guard them in transition. Then they have to guard them in the half court as well. And they have to be the word is disciplined. Let me just read this other.
There are two super chats.
We got two. Okay. All right. Shout out to Jason Benjamin again. Pacers beat an old, washed-up Bucks team, then beat a banged-up Cavs team. I just can't buy the Pacers hype. They do play well, but they will have to play us as well. We are their biggest test as well. I do agree with that. They might have beaten Cleveland at full strength. Because in my opinion, and this is what I felt coming into the playoffs, when everybody was all hyped on, I don't know how many 60 wins, whatever many wins they had. I was never sold on the Cavs as a playoff team. I felt like they had to prove it to me because there's a certain amount of physicality and mental strength that I have yet to see in the Cavs. And I was looking forward to seeing if they would have that in the playoffs, because the playoffs is just different. It's just different. And they didn't show that. And I do think the injuries were a factor. But you can argue, why are you sitting out? Like, if your kneecap is not hanging to the side, why are you sitting out a game just to come back and play in game?
It might have been overconfidence too. It might have been we could beat them with. I could sit out and we could still win. It might have been that, and then it was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, and by then,
I don't want to be too hard on them
behind the ball
because you don't know the extent of the injury. But I'm like, what? Wrapped up? I don't know. I don't.
And you coming off, we Knicks fans. What have we seen over the last couple of years? Our guys is coming out. You know what I mean? Our guys is coming out to play. Bad toe, can't lift my arm, like whatever it is. Like, so we've been a little, I don't want to call it spoiled, but you know what I mean? Like, we're used to our guys playing through that. So I got 9 more. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I like that, Tone.
Yeah. So Yeah.
Cut it off and get on to the next, right?
Listen, the Knicks will win this series. The Pacers are a tougher team than if you've watched them play, and I have. They're a tougher team than we think they are. The art man formerly known as Steve, appreciate you again. Question: what can Indiana do that we haven't seen run and gun? They were one humble loose ball to Nimham from being down 3-0 to an injured Knick team last year. We've upgraded significantly. We have, but they're also a better team than they were last year as well. They struggled out the gate the first 25 games. There was a time when it looked like they were going to the play-in. And then they finished the season with one less win than the Knicks. Like they really turned it up. They really turned it up down the stretch. And it's not their fault Cleveland got injured. It's just not their fault. Listen, I think they're going to be a formidable opponent, and I hope I'm wrong. Like I hope the Knicks go out and sweep this, and the Knicks go out and win in 5. If it's the Knicks from Game 6, we win in 5. If it's the up and down Knicks where, we got to have games because we're 7 deep, they're 10 deep, so they can get multiple contributions. They can have a guy not have a good night and then somebody come off the bench and drop 12 or 14. In this series, every single player has to show up every single night. And we haven't had that, right? We've had games where Mikal maybe didn't show to the 4th. OG or one of them was one game where both of them didn't like. You can't have that in this series. We just don't have that. Everybody has to show up every night. That hasn't been the Knicks in the playoffs.
I feel I disagree with you in the sense that, again, if we have that Game 6, that closeout performance, I think we smack them. I think it's like they said.
I agree with you.
Knicks at 5, but where I disagree is, I don't think we need everybody. Like not saying like people could not show up, but I think we could beat them the way we've won the rest of the games, minus the closeout games, where Brunson's the guy. You know what I mean? I think we need 2 other guys. You know what I mean? I think we need 2 other guys, and I don't even think it has to be for the entirety. I think we can have them in moments. If Bridges could give us a first and third, or a third and fourth quarter, you know what I mean? If Cat could give us a second, I think we can. It won't. Listen, I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk in that sense, but I think we can still win that way as well. So I'm super. I don't want to be overconfident, but I am super confident right now. I ain't even going front. It's hard to. I'm trying to temper it and not say too much. But that's my. I agree with you. Like I'm not saying it'll be a cakewalk if we don't all show up collectively, but I think we can still pull it out because that's what we've done. You know what I mean? We haven't had a game like the closeout game, and we won. You know what I mean? Like so, I feel like we could still.
But look how we won, Tony.
I listen. I'm not saying coming back down 20. I'm not saying that's ideal.
Right.
I'm not saying that's the way I want us to win it. You know what I mean? But I think we could still do that. And for a game here and game there. That's what I'm saying. And then we figure it out.
Yeah. The Knicks. I hear you. My point, the Knicks got to be on point to win this. To win this series. I think Indiana is a respectable opponent. I'm not afraid of them at all. I think if the Knicks come and perform the way I know they can perform on both ends of the floor, they win this. They win this series for sure.
And on the flip side, if we play like Game 5, we'll get smacked. So you know what I mean? There's a flip side as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jay Supreme. Pacers are tough. We have to play very high level defense to win this series. Like you can't be losing people. How many times we lost White in transition? Like you can't lose people in transition. You can't not know the coverages where you're supposed to switch and if somebody is in drop. Like you just can't. You just have to be on point. Is all I'm saying.
Do you? And I could be wrong. Well, it's not even wrong because it's a question. Is there a guy on the Pacers that you see that will have the type of volume that a Derek White shows, as far as like I'm putting it up regardless. You know what I mean? Like I'm good shot, bad shot. If I got daylight, I'm
think
throwing.
that's the whole team.
But I think collectively that's the team. But is there a one guy that you said that you think would be like, all right, he's potentially gonna go 8. That's gonna shoot 12 threes in a game. I don't know. I don't know that they will have a guy that I think they're a little bit more disciplined in the sense like that they may not. I don't think they have a guy that will take 12 threes in a
I
game.
think if because I don't think. So you think I don't think they have guys that's going to pass up open shots. So if it comes that way, it comes that way they're going to shoot it. I don't think they have somebody that's going to pass up the shot if it comes to them 8 times. They're not going to take it.
I get what you're saying. I feel like they're gonna, for the majority,
that's not how they play.
I also think they're gonna look for that next pass before they take that open one. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that it's really like I think they're more disciplined, but that also makes them less of a wild card in a sense. Like that the White in particular, you know what I mean? Like he was shooting it with that confidence, with the volume. Individually, I'm talking about. Not
Yeah, I hear you. I will say this, and we focusing a lot on the Pacers because we know the Knicks. Like we know the Knicks. Nembhard has been playing really, really, really good. In the playoffs. Now, it could just be who they've been playing, right? Broken down Cavs team, Miami team. That's that's not that that's not that good. All I'm saying is respect due. The Knicks are gonna have to handle their business. Like this is not gonna be a series. This is not Detroit on the offensive end where you miss a rotation or 2 or 3 and they can't shoot anyway, so you get away with it. I think if that happens in this series, it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up to them.
Let me throw a comment up, Queen. I think
Sure.
this is a great point. Shout out to Real King. How you say his name?
Carlisle.
Carlisle's a better coach than the guy from Boston, though, and he will adjust. I will
definitely
say he's a better coach than Thibodeau.
I'm not going there. Some people will say that. Some people said that. You know what I mean? Going back to last year or whatever. So I want to give their coach his props to say that he is the best coach that Thibodeau is going head to head against this year. You know what I mean? So that will there will be some challenges there. And like you said, some argue he's better even head. You know what I mean? Like, so that's gonna be a thing that we may not even analyze properly. You know what I mean? I know I might not see all the things, but I will give him his credit as a good coach and making great adjustments. You know what I mean? So
in game,
championship coach too. He won with
championship
Dallas
coach as well. Yeah. Let's stay on coaching. Is there anything you want to see from Thibodeau schematically or rotation wise that you think would really help us in this series? Maybe even give us the edge?
For me, I'm not gonna go in particulars or like something to pinpoint something, but what I'll say is, I think this is the best coaching job that Tibbs has done for this organization. This playoffs, in particular, that Boston series, and I think he's shown some growth. So I just want to see him to continue to tap into kind of from game to game, figuring out what this game needs, right? And I think he's been phenomenal at that this year. Can he continue to read the game and say, all right, for instance, we may need Precious, we may need to give OG an extra 2 minutes and utilize Precious. It's certain things that he did throughout this playoffs that I like. riding with campaign in that first game in the first round, extended minutes when he had the hot hand. You know what I mean. Riding with Deuce McBride down the stretch. In the I forgot which game it was, but it's
He
certain.
tied the Detroit series.
It's,
You know?
yeah, and this was before Deuce actually found his rhythm to be. So
Correct.
to your point, you know what I mean. I was thinking about it in
What?
Celtics when
Yeah.
he found his rhythm. But to your point, he rode with him in that whole first round, and he didn't have his shot. You know what I mean? But he was obviously influencing the game defensively. So I just like the way Tibbs has been reading the game this year, and you know, doing what as he preaches what the game tells you to do. You know what I mean? As opposed to just gun ho sticking with his perceived philosophy. So I think continue to show that growth because I think it's on full display this year.
Yeah. Geoff, if you don't mind, I would like to, um, some specific stuff. I would like to see us feature Towns more, prioritize him. I actually think he's a swing factor in this series. I'm not, and I don't know, it's possible that they've worked the numbers or whatever and just feel like the Knicks are a better team running through Brunson than running through Cat. But even if that's the case, you could still feature him, prioritize him, get him the ball more, encourage him to be aggressive. I think he's at his best in game 6 when he's mixing it up, the post, the drive, the three, right? As opposed to just trying to make him something he's not. Like just, people some fans just want to stick him in the post
Also,
and just
yeah,
stay like
back
that's
to the
not his
basket.
game. Yeah, you got to play him to his strengths and what he, and what he does best. So I would like to see. Go ahead, Tom.
Is this series specific for you? Because I agree, but I didn't mention this because I've been calling for this all year. Me personally, I don't think we'll see that until next year, like evolution of the team where now we could run it through Cat a little bit more and things of that. So that's just my question. Like, is this specific to this series? Like, because you said
Yes,
it's a,
this is
you think
specific
it's a
to
swing
this.
factor?
Yeah, even if you don't run it through him, you could run plays for him to get him looks. You can make it easier for him. The thing about playing him in the box is one, if he's in there with Josh Hart, and he usually is, Josh Hart guy can double team him in the post, right? They don't care about Josh Hart. At least Boston didn't. And two, I just feel like it's an adventure when Towns is playing in the post with his back to the basket and he starts dribbling, trying to get lower position because one, he doesn't have the leverage because it's a shorter guy on him. His ass gotta definitely basically be on the ground for him to have more leverage to them, right? Because she's just taller. So I don't particularly like him backing down. Then he can't really see the double teams either. I would prefer he turn around, face up. He can hit the jumper. He can drive from that, triple that position. He can drive for that position. He can see, if there's any cutters or if someone is open. But I just liked his game in game 6, the way he mixed it up. So I would like to see Tom Thibodeau prioritize Karl Anthony Towns in this series, and I would like to see him get off that starting unit if things are going south faster. I get it. He has a specific time in which they come off the floor, but if it's going south, you might have to make that substitution quicker. So I'm really looking at the rotations. I'm really looking at the Deuce minutes. His minutes was up in Boston. I think some of it was foul trouble. One game it was 28, another game it was 30. I do think Hart was in foul trouble one game, Bridges another game. But even without foul trouble, I like to see McBride's numbers up, and then Mitch. and the double big, or even if it's not a double big. So I just need to see just him, the rotations just moving a little quicker. Those are at least the two things I would like to see from Tom Thibodeau. Geoff?
Well, broken record, but what I want to see is Towns, Brunson pick and roll, and then another Towns, Brunson pick and roll, and then another Towns, Brunson pick and roll until they show that they can stop it. I actually think, Tony made a great point about matchup and series dependent. I think Cat will have a much better time out on the top of the key in this series than he did against Boston, where he can make more of those one-on-one moves and those drives, like you were saying. So I think this could be a bigger Cat series because I think he's going to be able to do a lot more. I don't think that I don't think the Pacers have as many answers to deal with him as Boston does. Boston could stick smaller players on him who are very strong, who he can't move, who just make it life difficult for him, where he has to get, like, Indiana doesn't have a lot of those defenders. Like, I'm not saying Miles Turner can't protect the rim, but I think he can beat Miles Turner off the dribble if he's got him on the perimeter. I think he can beat Siakam off the dribble if he's got him on the perimeter. And so I don't think they have answers in the same way that Boston has answers. So I think that this could be a big town series. I'm worried about Deuce on McConnell. I hope that he does a good job defensively on him. I feel like last year McConnell cooked us. And a lot of the time,
I don't think his role is that big this year, though. McConnell.
It'll be Carlisle knows.
But that's what I was just about to say.
Carlisle's
we just been talking about the coach.
Okay.
That's a coach's adjustment right there, Queen.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the reason I say that is because he's one of the few guys on their roster who can create his own shot off the dribble. Like, Halliburton creates space with the dribble, but he does it mostly to pass, but he can create his own shot off the dribble. Nembhard and Naismith, that's not their game. They're very good spot up shooters. They're very dangerous. I'm not saying they're not, but they're not creating shots off the bounce isn't their game. I mean, yeah, Nembhard lucked one, bounced one in, drop kicked it off his foot, in game 3 last year and ruined our sweep. But, if you're going to live with that more often than not, Turner is an outside shooter. He's not someone who you're going to give the ball to and he's going to make a play off the bounce. Siakam, a little bit, but I think OG can neutralize that from Siakam quite a bit. I think that the OG Siakam matchup is massive. I think in the 2 games where OG was healthy last year against the Pacers, we didn't see a whole lot from Siakam. And then to your point from earlier, once Hart had to be in the equation as the primary defender, they were able to hunt that matchup a little bit more and take advantage of that. If we can keep him from getting in the key and scoring in the paint, I think that makes their defense their offense a lot more one note. And the more one note their offense is, the better off it's going to be for us. Because if you can keep him from getting in the paint and getting those easy looks, or if you're just getting him in the paint and he's taking tough jumpers, even if he's making some of them, I think that that goes away from the formula that they want to use. And so anytime you can get them out of their game plan, I think the better off you're going to be. So I'd like to see a lot of OG on Siakam. No doubling. Don't double team anybody for any reason ever. Like, I don't even care if Halliburton gets hot, fine. Put someone on him, stick someone. Don't let him catch the ball. Guard him 94 feet, whatever you want to do. Don't send a double team because that's just asking for trouble. That's playing into their hands. We need to dictate pace, and we need to take the game to them. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. So with the Pacers roster, they don't have anybody who averages more than 7 rebounds per game. Did you know that? But they've got like 7 guys who average at least 3 rebounds a game. So that means they're gang rebounding, they're team rebounding. They're getting a lot of rebounds from their guards because they may take a lot of long shots that lead to a lot of long rebounds. And so it's incumbent upon the Knick guards, Jalen Brunson a little bit, but much more so Mikal Bridges, to block out and have his rebounding numbers up. If he has a big rebounding series and OG has a big rebounding series, I think we're in good shape because I think you're gonna get solid rebounding from Towns, from Hart, and from Mitch, because I don't think they have anybody could stop those guys. And
Right.
if Achua plays, I think the same thing is true of him. I think Precious, if he goes in, he'll have big rebounding games as well. The reason
Right.
I don't like Precious compared to Mitch is I think they're very similar on offense, and he doesn't bring the rim protection on defense. But Indiana doesn't really have rim protection like the way that Boston does. Cornette is a very good shot blocker. KP, a very good shot blocker. Indiana, Miles Turner's not bad, but he's not on the same level. And I don't think Thomas Bryant, or if you're playing Siakam at the 5, are going to be able to really
Right.
guard the rim either. So that works to Brunson's advantage.
Okay, that was a lot, Geoff. So I'm just trying to say, in terms of though. So are you saying in terms of what you want to see from Tibbs schematically is what? I'm sorry.
Well, from a schematic standpoint,
Or rotation. Either one.
Don't double.
Don't double. Okay.
Don't double. That's my big thing.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Cool.
And he said the Brunson cat pick and roll.
And the Brunson cat
2, 3, 4, 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
10, 12, 14, 20 times in a row.
Right. Yeah. Is there a particular matchup that you think we have an advantage? And is there a particular matchup where you think they have an advantage? And if the answer is no, then that's fine. Oh, I do want to say this about Towns in this series. This may be the first time a center is matched up on Cat, because they may want to hide Halliburton on Josh Hart. Maybe. There's so many different ways the Knicks can go in terms of, I really believe it's going to be Bridges on Halliburton and OG on Cat. I mean, OG on Siakam. What they do after that, I'm not sure. Same thing with Indiana. They can go with Nembhard on Brunson, who's been better defensively this year than last year. They can go with, Nesmith. But it looks like, at least to start, Turner will be on Cat. But is there one matchup? I guess I should. No, I'll even leave Brunson in there. Yeah. Other than Brunson, like I just feel like no matter who they put on Brunson is going to have the advantage. Other than Brunson, any other matchup where you think we have the advantage?
I'll be honest,
and vice versa. Mm-hmm.
The fact that we both agree that we have the two best players in the series.
Yeah.
And then, they go third. I think every matchup is our advantage, to be honest. Like whoever they put, if they put in a big on Cat, advantage Cat. If they put in a small on Cat for some reason, it's up to Cat to make that advantage Cat.
That's the key. And they may use Nesmith. I was listening to some X and O's on Indiana's a few podcasts that they may try to even use Nesmith because of his strength on Cat. Like we've seen it with Drew Holiday. To me, like I said, that's not the matchup to try to back him down, just turn around and shoot over the top. But go ahead, continue.
Again, Brunson, whoever they put on him, I think advantage us. OG, I think he has a strength factor that is gonna be a plus for him, and he really hasn't shown out this playoffs yet. And if there's one thing I remember about that last year, it felt like OG found his way, and him going down was the kind of like what tilted the series into their favor. So I'm gonna even give OG the advantage because of his two-way ability. Because if he's able to neutralize, slow down, minimize Siakam, he don't even have to have that 29 point. You know what I mean? Like he can stick to that 14 to 18 range, and it still be if not advantage him, you know what I mean, it still becomes a balance, you know what I mean, neutralizer. Because I don't think you're getting the level of defense from Siakam. On the other hand, you'll get good defense, but not to the OG level. Maybe the Josh Hart matchup might be the one matchup they win, but I don't even know if that's a guarantee. You know what I mean? Considering the effectiveness and what Josh Hart does and how it affects winning. So I don't know if there's a starting. Their matchup that they win is the bench matchup potentially. You know what I mean? Because those guys,
Tony all in, man. Tony all in.
I don't think they beat us in the starting five matchup. I don't. I think if anything, there might be some even things that even out and call it, balance. But advantage, I can't see it.
Okay. All right. Geoff, before we get to you, shout out to Jack City. Appreciate the super chat. A Knick fan just into the chat. NYK. Appreciate you. Welcome. Geoff, any advantage
I
you think?
think McCall offensively against Halliburton. I think McCall's ability to get in the post and shoot that little mid-range turnaround. I don't think it's really a blockable shot. He was able to get it off against Derek White and Drew Holiday, both who are light years ahead of Halliburton defensively. So, and I don't mean that. I don't consider Halliburton a plus defender. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I don't think he is.
I mean,
but we don't know if he's going to be guarding Bridges either. But if they are,
but okay, then that means they're hiding him on some. But I don't think there's anybody on Indiana's. I don't think Neesmith can do it. I don't think Nembhard can do it, and I don't think Halliburton can do it. I think that is the one offensive matchup. If he comes to the game and just decides this is my lunch pail, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna hit it hard every time I see it. I'm gonna catch it. I'm gonna make my move quick. I'm gonna hit that turnaround. That's a tough matchup for them. I don't think that they have an answer for that.
It's like the same thing with Cat. If Mikal comes out firing and is on, I don't think they have an answer. He gotta just, you know what I mean? Like, he gotta make his shots.
Yeah. I think Neesmith would present defensive problems for Mikal Bridges with his physicality. But the thing about Neesmith is he can't play everybody. Right? You playing Brunson or you playing Mikal Bridges. Like, you're not playing everybody, So I do think he presents some.
To your point, I think if that's the matchup they go with, that's a win for the Knicks because that gets them off of Brunson.
That does get him off. That does give him.
They're having to use him to stop Bridges. That means something's gone extraordinarily right for the Knicks.
Correct. I agree with that. I would say though that whoever Brunson is guarding is a concern. For me. Neesmith is having not Neesmith. Nembhard is having a really good playoffs up to this point, and if Brunson is guarding him, I don't think Brunson slows him down.
But
now,
how is he scoring? Is he getting mostly open catch and shoot threes, or is he attacking the basket? I don't watch a lot of.
Yeah, it's threes. It's threes. It's threes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but Brunson is going to get it back on. Brunson is going to get it back on the other end. I'm not concerned about OG and Siakam. I'm not. I think OG is going to make it difficult for Siakam. I don't think he takes him out the series. I know Tony feels like he takes him out the series. I don't think he takes him out the series, but I do think he makes it extremely difficult for Siakam. Whatever he's averaging, you probably could take 5 off of that, and I don't think he's going to be as efficient with OG guarding him. But I'm not sold on the consistency of OG and Mikal Bridges. I think when we talk about them in these matchups, we're talking about them as their best selves. And that hasn't always been the case in the playoffs, right? Brunson, I'm not worried about. He's going to be his best self. If they prioritize Towns and Towns is aggressive, it's nothing they're going to be able to do with Towns. OG and Mikal Bridges, fingers are crossed for me on the offensive end. I know what they can do, but they haven't been the most consistent wings. Defensively, yes, on the offensive end. So when we talk about these matchups, are we getting that aggressive OG Anunoby? Is OG getting open shots? Because if you don't have to guard Hart, you know, you don't have to, you could stay home. So is OG even getting corner
That
3 point
that I think
corner?
you're
Is
making a
OG
great
even
point.
getting corner threes, right? So depending on how they play their defense is going to have a lot to do, because to me, OG is more of an opportunistic shooter. Yeah,
Mhm.
they'll run a play for him. He can get the ball up top so that he can go downhill. But other than that, it's he's getting an open three. He's getting a bucket in transition. He ducks in and they give him the ball down low, or he post up a small defender. But he's more opportunistic um type shooter. And depending on how the game goes, he may or may not um get shots, and he may not get the shots that work best for him. Like you'll see 12 shots at the end of the night, 14 shots. What were the quality of those shots? Were those his shots? You know what I mean? So
I don't think we got to worry about the shot quality with OG though. If anything, I would be more concerned of the quantity. Is he getting enough shots as opposed to I don't I can't even really recall, OG even taking bad shots. You know what I mean? It may not be the best, the most idealist spots for him, but you know what I mean? I can't see him taking bad ones. My thing is, again, back to what I said earlier. If we could get one of them, you know what I mean? Like the defense has to stay consistent between the both of them at all times.
correct.
But if one of them is off offensively, you know what I mean? I think we can sustain that. It can't be both of them. It can't be, 8 shot attempts for the both of them, because now
Right.
you're underutilizing them. You're not making them a threat. That means somebody on the other team is not focusing on having to guard them. So they make or miss, more so with Mikal, make or miss. I think his attempts have to remain high. Um, and I think he'll find a way to impact the game at some point. OG, like to your point, are we gonna get him the looks? Are we gonna seek out? I think we could find him in the post in this series a little bit more than we've seen, right? I don't know if they have the guys that have the strength to kind of bang with him down. But to your point, that's not really a strength of OGs, right? That's not like something that you gonna be like, all right, today
Yeah.
OG's in the post or game. No,
Yeah.
you
And
gotta
he's an
you gotta
adventure when he
find them.
puts the ball on the floor. And I mean, listen, like, to your point, at least one of them have to show up. But the point I'm trying to make is both OG and Mikal, they not locks. I feel Brunson is a lock. I feel Towns, if he's aggressive, is a lock. OG and Bridges, we'll see. How many times the next day we've come back and been like, looked at the stat sheet and was like, you know, OG had 10 points, OG had 2 points. Mikal Bridges didn't get hot into the fourth. The point I'm trying to make is for the Knicks to win this series, the defense have to get on point and they need multiple contributions. It cannot just be, in my opinion, Brunson and Towns. That's it. That's all. That's all
And
that's
they
all.
got and I'm sorry, Chris, I'm gonna get out of here. My last comment though, I think they have more guys across the board that fit that of not being a lock, and you really don't know. I think they have more players across the board that fit that than we do. I'm gonna reiterate it. They may not be a lock, either one of them, but they are locked down. You know what I mean? That's one thing that is gonna be a lock night in, night out, game in, game out. They're gonna defend those two guys. You
But
know what I
but
mean?
because of our lack of depth, we need scoring for them.
I agree.
In my opinion, we need scoring for them.
But
Okay,
Queen, I gotta get out of here. Appreciate
okay.
you. Shout out to
Appreciate
the
it.
chat. Geoff, I got you locked in.
Thanks, man.
All
Appreciate
right,
you.
bro. One.
All right. Any yeah. I pretty much said everything I want. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about, or you had a question?
Well, the chat's been talking about Ben Matherin, and I think it is worth mentioning he didn't play in last year's series. So I think if you're going to go by wild cards and X factors and guys off the bench, that's a guy who you need to keep an eye on because he only plays about 17 minutes a game in the postseason, but he averages like 11 points. So he's like a microwave Vinnie Johnson kind of a guy who can get hot and spark his team and especially in you know in short spurts. So that's something that you have to look out for. And in terms of OG, remember the last time he played Pacers in the playoffs, he had 28 points in 28 minutes before he injured his hamstring. So we've seen OG be a problem for them in the past. Now, I agree with you. That doesn't mean that's what we're going to get all 7 games. We may not get it 2 of the games. I don't know. Like you're absolutely right. The question for this, one of the big questions for this Knicks team, which one's going to show up? Are you going to get game 5 against Boston? You're going to get game 6 against Boston. Same group of players, vastly different results. And so, I think we're going to have to rely on our bench a little bit more. I'd like to see Thibodeau go 9 deep, maybe have a few minutes for Precious. I think that last series was not a good Achua series. I think the matchups for him are a little better this time around. Maybe we get some better campaign minutes. I was real disappointed in him in the Boston series. And in fact, after game 1 against Detroit, he kind of went MIA. So it would be nice to get him to come back. And if he doesn't have it, maybe, throw in DeLon Wright instead, because Wright's a quality defender. The only thing I worry about with Achua minutes is how is the offense going to look when he's in the game, because you don't have to guard him, and so I think that's a concern. If you are going to decide to play him, but every series is different, and I think that especially when you're talking about playing against guys like Siakam, he has experience. They were teammates in Toronto. He and OG play well together against Indiana, so I think you can maybe steal a couple of minutes with a lineup like that. Not that I want to do a whole bunch, but everything that we can do to be a little bit fresher come the final stretch, I think is important, because they run a lot of guys and they're constantly in motion. That's not a series where you get a lot of breathing room. So we need to be smart. We need to take care of the ball. And we need to maximize our guys.
Yeah. Any concern that when we want to extend the rotation, but you got to keep in mind when you extend the rotation, you taking minutes from somewhere, right? You're taking minutes from somewhere, and you're hoping that those guys, if they're not adding to the lead or being productive, they're at least holding it down until the starters get back. So you want to extend the rotation to how many, and who would those players be, and who would whose minutes would you decrease?
Well, I think if you're going to play Achua, those minutes can come from Josh Hart, maybe, or OG if he needs a rest a little bit. I think with OG, though, I think whatever Siakam plays, OG has to play. And when Siakam sits, OG sits. That's how I would do that, because I think that's a matchup I want all the time. I don't want any minutes on the floor where Siakam is not guarded by Anunoby. So that would be prime for me. I'd like to see Bridges maybe get a little bit of a rest here and there, because I feel like if we get fresh Bridges in the fourth quarter, we're more apt to get one of those explosions like he's had in a couple other playoff games rather. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. If we can steal a few minutes with campaign at the 1, and that way if we can steal a few of those minutes, you can afford to put Brunson and McBride out at the same time. And I like the lineups that have those two in the lineup together. So, I think that you can work it where you've got three of your starters on the floor pretty much all the time and just, rotate those guys in as necessary. And I'm not, maybe just 10 minutes a game for those 8th and 9th guys. You know what I mean? Maybe 5. Maybe it's just at the end of the first half, just stealing a couple minutes, and then if it works, maybe you go back to it again at the end of the 3rd quarter. I don't know. Or start of the 4th, just steal a couple minutes here or there, because they do have a lot of depth and they are going to run up and down the floor, have a track meet. And I think it's incumbent upon the Knicks to try and control the pace a little bit. And, it's easy for us to get caught up because sometimes they'll allow easy baskets just so that they can get back and run up and down the floor and play at their pace. So I think if we can kind of, turn it into a half-court game as much as we can, I think that's where we can exploit our advantages.
Yeah, I do think pace is going to be an issue. I do think, they're playing the long game. They defend 3/4 of the court at least. Sometimes more than that. Trying to, tire Brunson out. For the 4th quarter. Maybe tire the Knicks out if it goes 6. 6 or 7. Just kind of playing the long game. You could say, well, we'll have somebody else bring the ball up the court. So that'll help keep Brunson fresh. But they pressure everybody. And can Hart and Mikal Bridges bring the ball over the court and initiate action against full court pressure? You know what I mean? I know some teams, you take the ball out of Brunson's hand, you give it to Bridges, they just let Bridges bring it up. They just let Hart bring it up. I don't think that's not going to be the case here. Whoever's bringing the ball up the floor, they're going to pressure them. I think it's going to be very interesting because I do hear the extend the rotation, keep your guys fresh. They're going to wear you down over the long haul. They're going to be fresher. The flip side of that is if your starters are playing a lot of minutes, they're going to be playing against bench players, and you should win those. You should win those minutes as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I would at least go 8. But just keeping in mind that every possession counts, and when you're going to your bench, they got to show up. They got to, if you giving Campaign more minutes, that's less minutes for Brunson. And yeah, he's going to be fresher down the stretch, but will the game even be in reach? Now, listen, I know Tom Thibodeau wouldn't let the game get out of hand before bringing Brunson back, but my point is, that's less minutes for your better players when you go to the bench. When you're going to Shamet and you're going to Pressures and you're going to Campaign, you just hope that they can just hold it down until the starters get back. And the Knicks are a well-conditioned team. We'll see. What's your if you were a betting person, would you bet that Tom Thibodeau extends the rotation or not?
Not. I think he trusts his guys. I think if I think what we've seen is his rotations. When he does expand it, it's mostly by accident. It's mostly, well, this guy got in really bad foul trouble, and so I had to play, McBride for 30 minutes, or, so I don't think he'll 7.5 maybe, but I think he's going to rely on those guys. And look, there's a day off. There's not going to be second game of a back-to-back. This is the playoffs. Teams play their guys 40-plus minutes. Look at the minutes distribution for Boston. Look at the minutes distribution, except maybe OKC, and I think even they were, like the Nuggets were even shorter on the bench than we were. And when Westbrook was in the game, they were playing 4-on-5. He was minus 40 in that clinching game. But, So you got to trust your starters. And look, that's how the Knicks have prepared this whole season, right? We're going to play our starters a bunch of minutes so that they're, when it comes to it, they can play 40, 45, 48, 53. Like, I don't think Bridges is going to be seeing out of the ball game a whole lot. He hasn't been. So I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of substitutions in this game.
A lot of substitutions. Anthony D, shout out to him. The Pacers are not a great defensive team or rebounding team. And that's why I think it's important on the offensive end not to make it easy for them. It's important on the offense. That's why I think it's important to prioritize Cat. Sometimes the Knicks they make it easy for the other team by not going to all of their options. Right? So let's see. I do think Tibbs extends it a little bit. I think they go 8. In this series. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who the 8th person is, because again, if it's Cam, that means less minutes for Brunson. Is that something you really want? And the thing about Precious, I don't think he brings anything that you don't already have on the floor. I don't think he brings. I mean, he does bring the switchability, but yeah. Anyway,
not to the degree that Robinson does at this point, the way he's been playing. So,
right.
So yeah, could still be 7 for sure.
Yeah. All right. Any last words?
Well, my laptop's about to die, so I'm going to have to get off here in a second. But I did want to say thank you to the chat. You guys are amazing. We even got a Pacer fan in the building. Salute to you. I believe it's Jordan Smith.
Salute to him.
We always like to see folks from the other half. You're welcome. Hopefully you get treated with respect here, because that's what this channel is all about. And salute to Tony. It was great having him. We miss you. Lady and the Chef, we need you back, but Queen, you're the best, and we get to do this again tomorrow, right?
Yep. Dope Soul Sports. Tomorrow we're doing our preview show, Tuesday 9 p.m. So be sure to check us out over there. And then I hope to release a video tomorrow morning on just my concerns and keys to victory tomorrow. So watch out. Watch out for that. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the replay gang. Shout out to the silent listeners. Shout out to Simeon Russell, the creator of the channel. Appreciate you. Until next time, family.